Hey guys, how you doing? Thank you for watching this episode of Traffic Light Reviews. My name is Michael Munoz.
And I'm Stephen Munoz, and today, this week, we will be reviewing one of Netflix's latest films from Spike Lee, The Five Bloods. This is Spike Lee at probably his preachiest. All right, so this movie is supposed to be about four gentlemen in particular who revisit Vietnam because they are going back there to retrieve the remnants of their long lost brother that died with them on the battlefield, as well as some gold that they lost there as well. That they found during the Vietnam War. They kept it there for themselves, and they vowed to come back at another time to get it.
And they are black.
The movie is, in terms of just talking about that as its plot, it's 2.5 hours. Right, it's 2.5 hours, and
2.5 hours, yeah.
I think that they talk about so much more, which, yes, Spike Lee is known for really hammering on
Black.
the head his own agenda. I mean,
Black.
you can't say that many times. Right?
Yes, you can, because it's true. Listen, I love Spike Lee. I do. But the truth is, I mean, he has a very, very clear agenda in all his films, and I respect that. That's the way it should be for any artist or filmmaker. If you want to get your point across, this is your platform to do it. I respect him as a filmmaker. However, he did make comments years ago that if you're not black, you won't understand my movies. And it just threw me off. So now every time I watch his movies, it's just like, do I understand it? I'm not black. So that's all that I'm thinking in my head. And I know that's terrible. I know it's terrible, and I'm truly sorry. I do enjoy his film. But this movie was kind of a mess.
Well,
A little bit.
I do feel in the vein of what he was trying to say. I think he just said so many things.
Mhm.
He harped on so many topics that in a 2.5 hour movie, the main plot line of these characters going back to Vietnam to try to find the remains of their old friend and trying to find that gold happens in 2 seconds. Like, if I were to cut those scenes out of them actually following the plot line of beginning to end of them going through this, it probably would have been an hour.
Yeah.
Like, it probably, like, and even with, because they do, backstory scenes or all that. And I thought it was interesting that the flashbacks still had the characters when they were old.
I like
with
that. I thought that was
because it's like,
a very
they
interesting
never
choice, yeah.
left, and this is who they are now, and they'll always be together, blah blah blah, brotherhood. I get it.
But I think it was also, and that's the great thing, because you can get many different things out of that. Whenever they flashback, Chadwick Boseman is 20, and everybody else is 65.
No,
But it makes sense because this is how we see them. This is how we see them. This is how we remember them. Or they made it this far. He will always be in their memory that young. Because, his
But
character.
I think when you're trying to have a whole bunch of 60-year-old guys with fucking military assault rifle shooting and running around and stuff and make it believable, like we're in that moment, it's like, well, we're not really in that moment because they're not performing at the way they would have when they were young. You know what I mean? It's like, the idea of a flashback is to take you into that story, right?
Right.
And to give you that feeling. But by showing these old guys, you know what I mean? I get it. It's trying to amplify story, amplify character. But
It was an artistic choice.
yeah, it's an artistic choice. But I just think, like, you sort of lose the severity of it. Like,
Okay.
like the
Okay.
idea of the heightened sense of what they went through back then, I didn't feel it because it feels more of a reminiscence. It doesn't feel more of I'm actually there.
Right.
And I thought at one point they were going to use those scenes and somebody would wake up or something like this was their dream, like and because each character talks like, yeah, I think about him all the time, like, so you can have that sense of like, oh, maybe this is this guy thinking about this particular series, thing that happened to them then. But no, it was just like, we're going to randomly go to this time and it'll drive the story. So like the flashbacks are useless, but it's just like talking about this and then now we're just gonna take everybody back here.
Yeah.
Like, when you see Chadwick Boseman, just know you're in the past, and this will be important. Don't worry, I'm not wasting your time.
Right.
But I do feel that in the messages he delivers in his movies, Spike Lee is very thorough. Is very is preachy in that
absolutely.
sense where he delivered too many messages in this movie. That I get it. Once he starts talking about the Vietnamese and what they went through and how it mirrored the black struggle as well. Okay, cool. Those two make sense to talk about together. They that that these black men, even though they went there, they were oppressed in America, but now they went there and then they oppressed the Vietnamese,
Right, right.
that they're no better than regular Americans, blah, blah, blah. You can have so many debates. I think that's what Spike Lee just wants to do. You can just have debates about, the issues he brings up.
Yeah.
And then, we get into a lot of Martin Luther King. And I actually thought that was such a great scene to touch on with the Black Battalion in Vietnam, hearing it over the radio that Martin Luther King was killed and that there's riots going on in the United States, and they're in Vietnam and they can't do anything.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, to
Right.
me, that hits on a level that, yeah, that's an important piece of history. Like, and Martin Luther King, JFK assassination, our parents talked about, they remember hearing that, when they were younger, things like that. I'm going to be able to tell my son, yes, I was in Manhattan during 9/11. These are quintessential moments in history that everybody's story is valid and everybody's story is significant. So, yes, you take that time to talk about that, cool. That has nothing to do with driving the story forward. Well, actually, yeah, that scene kind of did. It brought them a little closer together because they were going to get all crazy, whatever.
Right.
But then, like, to me, we have to understand what we want to say. We can say so many different things. That doesn't mean they're all going to make sense.
Right.
And I think that towards the end of the film, then he starts talking about the Black Lives Matter movement, and then this and that. And like, okay, this is point. I almost felt like he cut that scene in later.
Right.
Like he probably made the whole movie and then just cut this afterwards. Like, yeah, let's just talk about this because this was relevant at the time.
Right.
Because yeah, it just comes out of nowhere, and there wasn't like any build up towards that. It's just like, and now this is now this is this scene. The relationship between all the elderly gentlemen that we see them now when they're older, and what they're going through, their struggles as they go to try to find the remains of Chadwick Boseman and the gold that they lost. Will they find it? Things like that, and how it breaks up their own group because they had this bond, this kinship that was built through that time that was very important, and it did take them all the way to that point.
Yeah.
The idea of you don't see that with friends. You don't see that with groups of people, that something can really bring them together and keep them together for the entirety of their life, and then to see it all break down. Like,
Right.
I thought that was a powerful message that I think should have been talked about more. Like he dwells on it here and there, but then we go into a rant when one character who now we learn that he has a cancer because he's talking about Agent Orange, and you're not going to get me malignant. You're not, the
Delroy Lindo.
yeah, that
Yes.
he takes a little 5 minutes to give a little monologue. I get it. When every character breaks off and gives a little monologue at the camera, I just thought that, okay, cool. It's still within the context because that did happen in Vietnam.
Right. Right.
And I think that you can take people out too quick.
Mhm.
The more you do that. That Spike Lee has done it really well. Like, I think, Do the Right Thing, he had so many different moments where people are like smacking it in
Right.
front of the camera,
Right.
but then you get back to the story and it jumps you
Yeah.
right back in. With this, I just felt like there was just too many of those moments that just didn't make it feel like we were in the story anymore.
Right. Well, I mean, I disagree, and I want to apologize. I want to apologize earlier. I was making a lot of jokes in the very beginning, but the truth is, I actually do like the movie. I don't think it's a good movie, but I like the movie. I have issues with it. My review is going to be all over the place, but the ranting, the messages, the preaching, the different stories talking about the Vietnamese, talking about the black struggle, talking about PTSD, talking about family issues, talking about being a father, talking about being a son, talking about being a brother, the guilt you feel coming home from war, being having survived. All that is touched in this movie. It goes back and forth, but it's just some of it. This is some of the negative stuff. Even though it was a big jumbled mess of stuff, negatively, a lot of it was formulaic. And I know that doesn't make sense to say, but when one of the characters dies, and I'm gonna start throwing this out there, people die. When one of the characters dies, it's obvious, like, oh, he's gonna go. Like
Oh, when he's holding the gold bar up.
he's holding the gold bar. He's walking backwards in such a
For what reason?
like for no reason other than this is what the director told me to do. So I'm gonna do this. And then he died. And then another character dies, and it makes sense. Like you can't kill the most known black actors in your movie, so you kill the least known actors in your movie. A lot of the stuff that made the movie a mess made sense to me because it represented what was going on with the characters. A lot of what's going on in their minds, in their lives, is truly a mess. It's truly all over the place. So Delroy Lindo, for me, stole the show. This guy should get an Oscar, at least an
Really?
Oscar nomination. I loved him
Oh
in this
my
movie
God,
because he chews up the scenery so well. He's so good in every scene that he's in. And I know a lot of people can say he's overacted. And the truth is, the characters are old men now, but they were young men in the 60s and 70s. So, like most people, we stick to the lingo that we're brought up with. So these are old men saying jive, turkey, and you dig and all that stuff. And when you're watching the movie, you're kind of thinking, if this movie was directed by a white guy, they would say he was racist. So I'm like, thank God Spike Lee directed this movie. It's like, you can't say anything about me. I directed, I wrote, I'm Spike Lee, I did this. That's the way to talk. That's the way to talk. My uncle talks that way. That's the way to talk. That's how it is. How it is. I don't know why I'm looking over there. But it was really all over. I don't know how to explain The Five Bloods. If you're a Spike Lee fan, check this movie out. I don't think that the message of the Black Lives Matter movement was 100% connected to the story in this movie. You know, a lot of times when Spike Lee makes his movie and takes his message, they usually come together beautifully.
Yeah.
You know, Malcolm X, like, Black Star. Oh, okay, I get it. Black Klansman. Like, oh, I get it. I don't know. Even Inside Man, like, I get it. I get what he's talking about. But over here, I think he was just speaking about what was relevant now in the black community, the black movement, the civil rights movement within the black community right now. It's prevalent. It's real. And this is the story he chose to tell, but he also wanted to comment on what's happening in the world today. So he put it together, but it wasn't as cohesive as in his other film.
Yeah.
But there is something there because the story of black men in the Vietnam War fighting for a country that hates it, and then we have a movement right now fighting for people that have lost their lives due to police brutality. It's war on the streets, it's war in another country, and they're constantly fighting. So that's the connection, but it wasn't as obvious. Like, you have to look at it and see through the layers, peel the layers, see the metaphor behind the simile, behind the whatever. But I don't think it was one of his best movies. I bet you this though, I would crack up if over the course of time it becomes one of his most revered movies. Like, it might happen. I was very interested to find out that a lot of friends of mine who happen to be, of the African American persuasion, they did not like this movie. They did not like this movie at all, and that really threw me for a loop. I was like, wow, you guys hated this movie like big time. But I liked it, but it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. It was for me because I find it interesting. I'm an actor. I love theater. I love it when actors really chew up the scenery. And Delroy Lindo, like, he took advantage of every moment. If he dies tomorrow, I'll be like, this is the great last role for you. Maybe not the movie's great, but this role, I thought he was great. Thought he was great. The Five Bloods, directed by Spike Lee, premiered on Netflix this year. It tells the story of four brothers in arms, coming together, not only to lay their fallen brother at peace and bring him home, but to collect on a bounty they feel they deserve. It's a hard movie to watch. It's not a straightforward film. It's not entertaining, even when it tries to be. There are a lot of messages throughout, Some of them you'll miss, some of them you'll get, and some of them might make you roll your eyes. I was a fan of the overuse of film score during certain scenes in this movie, but that's something that Spike Lee, I noticed, likes to do a lot of time. And I'm a sucker for that type of cheesiness, but it is cheesy and it is corny. But hey, do you, brother? Yo, Spike Lee, do your thing. You're making movies. People love them. I love them. I think I'm going to give this movie a yellow light because I don't think it's for everybody. Me personally, I would give it a green light because I do want to see it again. I do want to catch things I may have missed. And I did find the movie interesting enough to have a lively discussion about it. So if you guys have any opinions, I'd love to hear about it. But it's not exactly a red light for me, not exactly a green light, but I'd give it a yellow light. If you got time, check it out. Spike Lee movies are always worth the watch.
The Five Bloods by Spike Lee takes us to a place that we haven't talked about enough. We haven't talked about what the struggle was for the African American during the Vietnam War. More importantly, those that were involved in the Vietnam War. I do feel with every Spike Lee movie, there's a teachable moment. There's a big learning, a big useful lesson that can be taken away from every single one of his movies. And I think this one did the same thing. It definitely hit the nail in the coffin for some things I didn't even know about the Vietnam War and the struggles that people had to go through because of it. And when it comes to completely and efficiently communicating that element, the unfortunate part is that he also touches on so many other topics that I think he did a disservice to the message he was trying to give in the first place with the main characters and their main struggle. So yes, unfortunately, I'm going to give this a yellow light. I almost wanted to give this a red light because I think as Spike Lee has progressed with all of his movies over the years, I almost feel like he should have known better. He should have known that he was telling a great story and he should have stuck with that. That yes, all the other messages he put in the movie are important. They're important to what's going on in the world today, but he could have really hit the I think he would have had a really true Oscar contender if he would have just completely stuck to this story about these guys the whole time and really, really made us care so much about these guys. Because, yes, spoiler alert, when some of them die, there was one of them in particular that I didn't really care for. That the way he did die, it happened so quick that all I thought was, wow, this is one of the main characters of the movie. And it happened so quick that they just move on, because since this is towards the end of the movie, it just has to keep going. That I just felt like that there wasn't enough. That if you're going to talk about the brotherhood of these men through their entire lives and what they went through, that we should stick with them the whole way, and that every second should count, every moment should matter, because they are intertwined together for the rest of their life through every single moment. And I think he fell short of that mark.
Okay, guys, thank you very much for watching this episode of Traffic Light Reviews. We hope you like what you saw, like what you heard. And as always, please leave your comments and likes and dislikes down below.
Yeah, especially anything, if there's anything particularly that you want us to address more, we would love to talk about this in depth. Because yes, we could talk about this for an hour. And when it comes to subject matter like this, it's very important for the world today. And we do take this very seriously.
Yeah.
So don't forget to like and subscribe, and you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram in the links below.